Hey there, and welcome to the UkeStuff channel, and welcome to this UkeGuide review of the Hricane UKSS-02. It is laminate spruce with laminate rosewood back and sides, and this was a special deal on Amazon. I was just looking at Amazon listings. I always kind of keep an eye on Keepa to see what is perhaps used and returned and new and on sale, and this one popped up for $19.99. I think it was old stock because the reviews that I see are from 2019, early 2019. So I think it was just old stock and they were trying to get it out of the warehouse because you do pay Amazon for storage, and I think it's based on square feet. And with an ukulele, that becomes kind of pricey if an instrument isn't moving. So I think this is one of Hricane's older models like this, although they still have some models that are similar to this. They have one with some etching on the top, and they have one with a cutaway that are very similar to this. So I think this review would be indicative of those instruments too, from what I'm seeing and what I have seen. So as we go forward with this, don't think of this as a $20 instrument. Think of it as a $65.99 instrument at this point. Now, before I go into any more specifics on the instrument, let me just again summarize what happens in these reviews. First of all, I look at subjective things, then I look at specifications, and I come back with a summary and an overall UkeGuide rating. And you will see those chapters below on the slider, as well as in the description below, if you want to jump to different parts of this review. With that said, let's start looking at the instrument a little more closely. I've already mentioned this was $19.99, which was just an odd sale. Similar models are $65.99, so I think that's the price point you should be thinking for this new. Of course, the used market, so if this is only available used, will be different. You can expect a used market generally to be 65% of the original, not of the $19.99, but of the $65.99. So if you're going to buy this, I'd probably be looking in the $40 to $45 range at the most at this current time, but it can differ depending on supply and demand. Now, in terms of value, at $19.99, it was a tremendous value. I'm glad I bought it. I really should have bought like 5 of them and then either sold them locally or given them away, and I didn't have enough foresight to do that. So with that in mind, $19.99 is a tremendous deal. The full price of $65.99 is a good value. It's really a decent starter instrument that we'll get into, and it comes with a really nice gig bag. Hricane does a really good job with their gig bags. There are better gig bags. I've now seen the Cala Transit gig bag up close, and that is perhaps the best gig bag that I've seen. Flight's gig bags, I think, are second to that. Acklot makes a really good gig bag for an inexpensive ukulele. And of course, Hricane's bags are really cool. Now, I have to admit, I love this blue color. Even if I sell this ukulele, I'm keeping this bag. I love this bag, its color. I just wish they still did that. Most of Hricane's bags right now are black. Some neat features, not only does it have decent padding, like we're talking like close to 15 millimeters of padding, they also ship with a neck block, which not all bags do. It's not required, but it's a nice feature. Has a smaller pocket, so the pocket's nothing really major. A lightly padded handle, lightly padded 2 straps. It does have a rubber bumper on the bottom, and then of course the hanging hook that I so much look for with a gig bag. So the gig bag itself is probably worth the $19.99 that I paid for it, but then you also get the instrument. At $65.99, you're getting a pretty decent gig bag and a pretty decent instrument at that price. There is a lot of competition, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So the value is good at $65.99. Not out of this world, but it's a good value. The build quality is overall pretty good. There are a couple of things on the soundboard that are less than desirable. I have like one little spot of sort of some kind of like epoxy that's hard on there, and I didn't put that on there. So that's there, and then there's one little ding in the soundboard. It doesn't bother me because I buy instruments to play, not to display. So with that in mind, that's okay with me, but some buyers want perfect even at $20 or at $65. And you should have good, but you've got to keep your expectations sort of in check. But other than that, it's really well put together. It has the ABS binding. It has no purfling, which I think kind of really detracts from the looks. We'll talk about the looks here in a moment. And otherwise, feels pretty good. Fret ends are good. Closed geared tuners that work just fine. Sort of your Martin-esque headstock. When I undid the unboxing of this one, I compared it to another Hricane model that actually had a much sharper Martin point on it. It does come with strap buttons, but it didn't come with any other accessories. So overall, it's really well put together, and I like it a lot, except it is kind of plain, and we'll talk about that with appearance. So overall, it's really well put together. However, let's take a look on the inside so you can see what's going on in there. Let's take a look at the Hricane UKSS-02 ukulele. All right, looking straight back, you can see that it has some glue mess back there. Looking up at the top here, there's the bridge plate along with the vertical braces that run along the top. You can see that it's not solid wood as well, for sure. And that's pretty much it. A back brace. It's not bad by any means. But that's the lower bout. Let's take a look at the upper bout. Okay, here's a look at the upper bout of the ukulele. Again, you can see there's some glue mess here and there. But overall, you've got your notch kerfing. Generally pretty well built, pretty cleanly built. And of course, you have both a neck block and a tail block. You know, looking pretty decent for a laminate, low price, entry-level ukulele. All right, and that's our look at the inside of the Hricane UKSS-02 ukulele. All right, so we're back. It's actually pretty well built. I mean, yeah, there's some glue here and there. That's generally what you'd expect, and you see it on even some of the best ukuleles that are out there. So with that in mind, yeah, it's pretty well built. Now, in terms of appearance, it's pretty plain. The pale top is often accepted in the ukulele world, even without it being gloss, because it's solid spruce. This is not solid spruce. You can even see it as you look at the side. So when you look at it from the side, you can see where the veneer ends and where the other wood begins with the soundboard. So it's not solid spruce. And that's a negative point for the instrument because Hricane really doesn't make that clear. And anybody that knows ukuleles is going to say, well, you can't buy really a solid spruce top instrument for $65. No, you really can't. But somebody that's new to ukulele just doesn't know will see spruce top and go, oh, I want a spruce top instrument. Now, more expensive instruments, you kind of write off the paleness. For example, the Koloha spruce that I have also looks very pale in comparison with the beautiful acacia or koa that they would use, or mango, actually, that they'll use. So it's a very plain looking ukulele. It does have the rosette. The laminate is just fine. You know, it's fine. It's just plain. And it's just not going to wow anybody. I think I write that later in the actual UkeGuide.info. If you go to UkeGuide.info, you'll see the written guide for this. I said that it just isn't going to wow anybody. It's not bad. It's just not exciting. Now, in terms of availability, I think this one is discontinued now. It might come back, so don't quote me on that. But at the moment, I can't find this one available. So with that in mind, availability is set to 0 on this. However, you can buy a version with, again, a laser etched top that's available and one with a cutaway, both for around the same price as this one originally sold for. Now, in terms of playability, overall, it's what I've said week after week after week here now, which is if you have a 35 millimeter nut, there's sort of a standard setup. And this is very much that standard 35 millimeter import ukulele setup. The action is decent, really decent for this instrument. The neck is your typical C-shaped neck. The spacing is your typical spacing on a 35 millimeter nut. So some people with large hands just aren't going to like this instrument. If you're used to playing a 35 millimeter nut, the playability is just fine. I will say that I did read through the Amazon reviews of this instrument, and there were a lot of people that complained about high action. I did not experience that. So this was not sent to me by Hricane to review. I just bought it out of the blue. They didn't know that I was going to review it. So it was set up for what I would be looking for. Can you have variation? Absolutely. So just so you know, be aware that if you buy one of these, you may have to deal with action. And I know of a couple other people that have bought Hricanes, and while they're happy with most of the ukulele, they do have to work on the action for the one that they receive. So far, it's been pretty good for me with Hricane, but again, your mileage may vary. Now, in terms of sound quality, I think it's really average, especially for a laminate instrument. It does carry some of the qualities of spruce with a brighter sound than dark, but it's definitely also got that laminate overall quality to it. It doesn't have a lot of nuance in the tone. It doesn't have a lot of layers to the tone. It's sort of one-dimensional. By no means is it bad, though. So if you were to ask me, well, what if somebody wanted to buy this, either the current version or they found this one used for a beginner, by all means, there'd be no problem with that, using this instrument in that context. But at the same time, there are better sounding ukuleles with a more complex tone. It can be loud if you hit it. The tone again is more bright. And here is what's happening with the sustain. Yeah, it's not bad. And it's holding on a little bit. So let's take an actual look. One of the things I like to do is to let you see what I'm hearing with Tonal Energy Tuner. It's an app on my iPad, and I play a chord, generally the C chord on a GCA ukulele, and I let you see what I'm hearing. So here is the C chord. So it does have some sustain, but it's a very one or two dimensional tone. It's not an overly complex tone. You even see it when you play a chord on Tonal Energy Tuner, and it doesn't light up the whole spectrum when you play. It sort of hits this band, and then that band is also what sustains on it. But again, for an inexpensive starter ukulele, it's not bad. All right, now that we've talked about the subjective issues, let's talk about the specifications of the instrument. It is a concert ukulele with a 15-inch scale length. It has 18 frets, 14 to the body, and it does have side marker dots, which is nice, as well, of course, front markers. And the body style is a traditional double bout. It has a laminate spruce top with laminate mahogany back and sides. The fretboard appears to be rosewood, as does the bridge. The bridge is a slotted bridge, and it is not a radius fretboard. The nut and saddle are listed as bone, and it is not a compensated saddle. It's just a straight saddle. The finish is a very flat satin finish, although it's a little more shiny on the mahogany parts. The overall length is 24 inches exactly, and it weighs 15.4 ounces, which is really light. It's well balanced, and that's even with the strap buttons on it. There are close-geared tuners, the chrome, generic, but they work just fine. The action at the first fret was 0.25 millimeters, which is, nice and low. And the action at the 12th fret was 2.25 millimeters. I didn't adjust it. That's how it came. They didn't know that I was reviewing it, and that's pretty good. Again, as I mentioned, some people have mentioned that their action did not come as well set up as that. I guess I'm just lucky with this one, but I do think that Hricane's quality control continues to improve. The nut width is 34.34 millimeters, so just under 35 millimeters. The spacing between the strings at the first fret was 8.8 millimeters, which is 28.64 G to A, which is pretty standard, again, for a 35 millimeter nut. The depth of the neck at the third fret was 21.26 millimeters. It's a C-shaped neck. It doesn't taper off. It could be more flat, and it would be more comfortable, but it's not bad. Again, it's pretty much what you're always going to see right now with a 35 millimeter nut. That could change over time, but right now that's sort of the industry standard. All right, now that we've done the specifications, let's just summarize this ukulele. I was just lucky to find it at a closeout price of under $20. It was under $25 when I bought it. I actually had an Amazon $25 gift card, which I used to buy this instrument. The last reviews I saw of this were from early 2019, so it was probably just old stock. Hricane does carry models that are similar to this today. It has a decent sound. It has a decent playing experience. It has a really nice gig bag, Overall, it's a decent value, even at its full price of $65.99. And I think Hricane even throws some other things in today that this one didn't have. This one only had the strap buttons installed and the bag and the instrument, and that was it. People will spend a lot more on ukuleles that don't play as well and certainly don't sound any better. The sound is laminate. It isn't very complex, while it can be loud, but that isn't a bad thing. It'd certainly be just fine for a beginner or something to carry along on a trip without worrying too much about. No complaints here. It's also very plain looking, perhaps too plain looking. Might be nice if they added something like some purfling or something else to the top and maybe even a gloss finish, but again, that's going to add to your price on an instrument like this. When it comes down to it, it's a great basic ukulele that just isn't going to wow you, and that's okay. Not everything has to wow you. Some things are okay being functional. There are people that would prefer a very much plain ukulele like this one that isn't flashy but will serve them well. So with that said, what would I rate this ukulele? I've kind of gone back and forth because it's so middle of the road and it's so non-awe-inspiring, really. I've thought about giving it a 3, but I think because, again, it plays nicely and because it comes with that really nice gig bag, I think I'm going to make it a 3.5, 3.5 ukuleles. You could certainly argue me down. I don't think you could argue me up too much because there are ukuleles that sound better at a similar price point. There are ukuleles that have a more complex tone at a similar price point, and there are certainly ukuleles that look a little bit more flashy, a little more wow at roughly the same price point. So I think somewhere between a 3 and a 3.5. So if you find one of these and you want to buy it, my message to you is go ahead. No problem with that. It's just not a wow blingy ukulele. That said, if I had $65, I'm not sure that this is the model that I would buy. I think I would go elsewhere just for looks. Maybe a little bit with tone, but even more with looks. So that's it. That is the Hricane UKSS-02 concert ukulele. Thanks for watching this review. I hope you're having a great day, and I will be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.